Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're at item A on our agenda tonight. I hope you all had a restful Thanksgiving weekend. I truly hope that Woodland comes out of this long weekend without a surge of COVID cases. Time will tell. Let me call this meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. on December 1, 2020. This is Mayor Rich Landsberg, and I would like to make clear for the record of this meeting, and it should be reflected in the minutes of our meeting, that this regular City Council meeting of December 1, 2020 of the Woodland City Council will be conducted pursuant to Governor Newsom's Executive Order N2920. And won't it be grand that I won't have to say this for very much longer. The meeting will be held via teleconference and council members will participate via teleconference. Their locations are not listed on the agenda and are not accessible to the public. The public is encouraged to listen to the City Council meeting live on Woodland TV Channel 20 and also by going to the City of Woodland website at www.cityofwoodland.org/meetings. If a member of the public wishes to make a comment during the general public comment period or on a specific agenda item, there are two ways to do that. First, members of the public were invited to leave a voicemail message at 530-661-5900. All voicemail messages received by 6 p.m. tonight will be played during the City Council meeting and read into the record at the appropriate time. Any member of the public watching the live stream who wishes to make a comment on an item as it is being heard may submit an email to the city clerk at councilmeetings@cityofwoodland.org prior to the public comment period on that item. Emailed comments submitted to be read into the record shall be no more than 3 minutes long when read aloud. Please include the agenda item on the subject line. We're now going to go to item B, roll call. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Barajas?
Here.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Present.
Mayor Landsberg?
Present.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Stallard?
Present.
Thank you. Now I would like to request that each member of the council respond to these two questions. Can you hear me well, and do you have a copy of the agenda? Councilmember Barajas?
Yes and yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Fernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Landsberg?
Yes to both?
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Yes to both. Thank you.
Pro Tem Stallard?
Yes to both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, have you posted the agenda at a location that is reasonably accessible to members of the public?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that all council members are present for this teleconference and have indicated they are able to hear the proceedings. At this time, I'm going to request that other city officials introduce themselves and their positions so that our record may reflect their attendance at tonight's meeting. Starting with our city manager, Ken Hyatt.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Ken Hyatt, city manager, is present.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Ethan Walsh, city attorney, also present.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Ana Gonzalez, city clerk.
Also want to acknowledge other staff members that are listening in and participating in this meeting as well. We have Derek Caff, our police chief, Eric Zane, fire chief, Christine Engel, community services director, Craig Locke, the public works director, Brent Meyer, our acting community development director, Kim McKinney, our finance officer, as well as Scott Sowen, our IT manager.
Thank you. Now, as we go through tonight's agenda, I would request that before speaking, you should identify yourself each time you speak. For example, this is Councilmember Barajas, etc. Let the individuals speak and please do not interrupt them. I would also ask, to the greatest extent possible, that please mute your phones or devices so we do not get unnecessary background noises. I would also like to advise all council members and the city clerk that any votes taken tonight during this teleconference meeting must be taken by roll call. And I would ask that Madam Clerk take that roll for any and all votes. Now let's begin the rest of our agenda, starting with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm going to ask Councilmember Barajas to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I promise you, Angel, this will be the last time I call on you for this.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You were muted, Angel.
It worked.
Oh,
It
next
worked.
time. I still have 2 more meetings.
We lip synced with you.
All right, that's going to take us to item D, public comment. Madam Clerk, since the council chambers are closed to the public, is there any member of the public who has submitted an email or left you a voicemail for the general public comment portion of our meeting?
No, I don't have anything for the general public comment. I do have one for item 9.
All right, are there any hands raised at this point for the general public comment?
No.
All right, thank you. That takes us to item E, council and staff statements. I'm going to start with Councilmember Rodriguez tonight.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving holiday and weekend. I had the pleasure to enjoy with my mom and sister a little bit of Small Business Saturday, so that was really nice, and got to wave at some folks at a distance. So yeah, it was nice to get out a bit. Today was the final elections count for Yolo County elections, and I want to congratulate Ms. Victoria Fernandez for taking Council District 4 seat. And I also want to congratulate Ms. Magda Padilla for making it to the finish line. It's campaigns, consume a lot of time. There's a lot of groundwork, a lot of grassroots, a lot of walking and phone banking. So, I think this was a win for many. So with that, I'll move on to the next. I want to thank Sacramento Business Journal. I was recently recognized as a 40 under 40 honoree. And I apologize, folks, I'm dealing with allergies here. So I was recently recognized among 39 other individuals, and it was a nice virtual celebration. Sacramento Business Journal honors 40 individuals each year, and so it's something really nice to be honored on that end. Finally, I've been thinking a lot about this COVID pandemic, and we have more hospitals filling up, and folks are going to be, although sometimes we're prone to travel due to COVID, there's always the folks out there who are going to travel. And I just want to ask folks to please be sure to be safe. As hospitals fill up, for example, we could be put in a situation where we may be sent to a hospital where there is space, i.e. outside of Yolo County. We don't know. And so you want to be extra careful when you're out there, whether it's driving and anything, taking your time, making sure you're being extra safe. Finally, unrelated to our agenda items here, I've talked a lot about civic engagement over the years, and I want to, push folks out there who are thinking of in the future getting involved in whether it's running for office or position, that we have upcoming opportunities, of course, in our city administration for an assistant city manager position. I think there's a lot of unexplored talent out there in our community that could really be brought in for that future position. There's also a Council District 3 appointment or special election position. Folks, you want to get involved, you want to be part of this process, get out there, be active, and apply for these positions. Finally, in 2022, we're going to be seeing a redistricting of our city council seats, whether it's a reorganizing of our council districts or adding another district, because District 5 is growing and it's doubled in size, folks. So do stay involved, do stay engaged, because there's a lot of work to do, and it's not an easy job to be a public servant, but definitely one of the most rewarding ones out there. So with that, Mr. Mayor, thank you for allowing me the time, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. So well-spoken words of wisdom. Councilmember Fernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got nothing significant to report. Thanks.
Nothing about your mom?
I've already talked to my mom.
Councilmember Barajas.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Landsberg. A few things to report. I'd first like to congratulate those that ran for Woodland City Council in numerous districts, and those that won. Obviously, Councilmember Tom Stollard, Myra Vega, and also just recently, Victoria Vicky Fernandez. And I'll also like to congratulate those that ran, including Magda Padilla, who ran a hard race in District 4. And we're just proud that we have a lot of Woodlanders that are engaged and want to participate and will continue to participate in local government, just so that our community can be better than it already is. And so congratulations to those that won, and congratulations to those that ran. Also, I did submit my tenured resignation to our mayor, and I do have a letter to read to the council and to the community. Mayor Landsberg and Woodland City Council members, as a result of being elected as the incoming Yolo County Supervisor, District 5, please accept my resignation as Woodland City Council Member, District 3, effective December 16th, 2020. My last council meeting will be on December 15th, 2020. It has been my dream and pleasure serving the residents of Woodland during the last 6.5 years. We have accomplished many great things in Woodland, such as revitalizing Woodland's downtown, increasing business and solar permits, reconstructing several major road projects, increasing much needed agricultural and residential housing, and providing essential public safety, recreational, and senior services. These achievements could not have been accomplished without the collaboration and commitment of residents, council members, city staff, nonprofits, private sector, business, and labor communities. Although my resignation means I will no longer serve as a city council member, I will continue to serve Woodland residents in a different capacity as their county supervisor. The work to build a better community will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Barajas. Good thoughts. Mayor Pro Tem Tom Stoller.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have essentially a short agenda tonight, but big things are happening. And Angel, your statement is certainly one of those big things. We'll be happy to see you go forward in a new role. And having been in that role myself, I can just say it's a wonderful experience and a lot of great people associated with Yolo County. So I've congratulated you before. I congratulate you again. To our other departing colleagues, Associate Enrique, thank you for your time and energies on behalf of our city these past few years. As Sochi so well said, it's not an easy job. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, but it's a very rewarding job. And those of us who do it because we love it. And that's what keeps us moving forward together and good things happening in our community with a great city staff, by the way. Thank you for staff. I also want to congratulate Vicky Fernandez and of course Myra. We've already congratulated her at a prior meeting. I think they're both remarkable women who will bring a lot to this council and allow us to move forward in the future without missing a step. And so I welcome them, and I thank I thank the challengers who put themselves out there. Magda Padilla, you ran a great race. I mean, it was neck and neck all the way, and it didn't go your way this time, but there's always another opportunity, and there's so many ways to serve the community. I hope you'll find others to do so. You know, it's been a tough time in our town for a long time now. And I just want to compliment everybody for the resilience that they have shown. I think the top of my list right now, of course, after the first responders and the essential workers for all they do for us, I would have to say that the people in the restaurant businesses have been so impressive. They've had to pivot a number of times. And here we are talking Purple Plus, so who knows what that means. But I see wonderful things happening. The city's been a great partner to them. I'm grateful for the program we adopted last time, providing small grants for some of these businesses. So please, folks, keep reaching out to our small business community. Small Business Saturday was a lot of fun. We enjoyed ourselves, and there were a lot of people downtown. It was fun. The food was good too. I also want to say thank you to those who make our community special for the holidays. It's one of the things that can lift our spirits. I've seen a lot of energy being put into home decorations this season. Our downtown's had a lot of sprucing up. Ken Hyatt, thank you, and the teams that have worked with you to get more lights in the trees. And I particularly want to call attention to Fire Engineer Kennedy and his wife, Sam and Trista. Trista's had been associate of the chief at the police department. They live on McKinley at, let's see if I can get this picture, get it up here. They live on McKinley at Toy On, and they've got over 85 small homes displayed, little villages in their garage. The garage door goes up at 5:30 and goes down around 9. So if anybody's cruising the neighborhood, hopefully within the speed limit, stop by McKinley and Toy On and see the beautiful holiday Christmas display, music, lights, and a little village. That's it for me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Stallard. My comments are a little bit different tonight. Today, Mayor Pro Tem Tom Stallard and I had the pleasure of meeting with Dr. Art Pimentel, who is the president of our Woodland Community College, also a former city council member. And Dr. Pimentel presented to Mr. Stallard and I a very promising program that he would like to see our city participate in. And it would be called something like the Woodland College Promise. The Woodland College Promise would be anticipated to cover up to 2 years of community college fees for eligible Woodland graduates from both high schools and perhaps even the private high schools. We're not sure yet. But students in those graduating classes would be eligible to participate in this Woodland College Promise by simply making an application and getting it approved by the community college so that they can go to college without having to worry about fees to get into the school. Additionally, once this program gets going and if we get it moving, Dr. Pimentel would like to see us also participate in something that would be called Woodland Stars Scholarship Program, which would be further funding of college curriculum and programs for our college students to get past the first year and continue to stay in school. In other words, just don't go for a semester or for 1 year, but finish out the community college career so you can move on to institutions of even higher education. This program is not fully vetted yet. It hasn't been fully written out yet, but it looks promising, and we hope to present this to council in the very near future as a potential project for our kids here in our district. Again, it's very preliminary. I look forward to working with Dr. Pimentel, with the school district and our staff to get this thing going. I too would like to congratulate District 4 Councilmember Vicki Fernandez for her very, very narrow victory over Magna Padilla. It just shows how important it is that every vote does count. You know, if you think that your vote doesn't count, just ask Vicky Fernandez and Magna Padilla how important it is to get the vote out. So we'll be welcoming Vicky here and Myra Vega here real soon. In fact, we'll be doing that next week at a special council meeting. And that's all I have tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hyatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'd like to start with a quick thank you to the community for participating in Shop Small Saturday, and we actually expanded it this year to encompass the entire weekend. And talking to the merchants and the restaurants, not just downtown, but actually throughout the community, it sounds like the community really took it to heart this year and showed up in support of our small businesses and particularly the restaurateurs that have been struggling throughout the ever-evolving restrictions this year. So I do want to acknowledge the community for responding to that call and supporting our local community. We did close yesterday at 5 p.m. the small business grant program, so we're actively reviewing all of those applications that we receive and hope to be announcing those awards by Friday this week and getting the money that the council approved from the county into their possession to further their operations through this difficult time. As a council, I think the community certainly well knows we are continuing to stay in the purple tier here in Yolo County and really throughout the entire state at this point. As the governor remarked yesterday, the state and CDPH is actively monitoring hospitalizations and, more importantly, the ICU capacities of the hospitals throughout the state. Anticipating a surge kind of post-holiday week with the travel and the gatherings that occurred last week. Depending on how the hospitalizations and the ICU capacities respond over the coming week, it's entirely possible, as the governor indicated, that we would be actually going into a purple plus or a deep purple condition. What that might look like is still not clear, but as LA County and Santa Clara County have already begun to do, it's likely a further curtailment of business operations and gatherings and activities. So we will be, of course, tracking that closely with the county health officer and be sharing that information here shortly. But it is certainly, put a cloud a little bit over our business community and anxiety again over will they be allowed to, now that we'd be able to support some of their outdoor activities through these grant programs, even be able to use those improvements. So I want to continue to encourage folks to support, not just monetarily, but through messages on Facebook and whatnot, how much we support our local business community through this difficult time. And then, as you know, the election results have been certified, and do want to also acknowledge that we now confirm passage of Measure R, which, as the council is aware, is a critical part of our budgetary investments in this community, particularly in youth and crime prevention. So I look forward to providing a report to the council coming up on the 15th on the Measure J spending, which precedes Measure R, and in a year and a half from now, we'll be transitioning into the Measure R spending plan. So on that, a quick look at the long-range calendar. As the mayor indicated, next Tuesday evening, we'll be holding a special council meeting to say goodbye to the outgoing council members for their great service to this community and welcome in the new council members from districts 4, 5, and 2. And there may be just one small consent item next week to go along with that, but that meeting will be held virtually given the concerns with the pandemic right now. And so unfortunately, we won't be able to swear in the new council members formally live, but we will do that virtually through a special meeting. The next regular meeting would be the December 15th meeting. We will have quite a bit for the new council to talk through, certainly the calendar for 2021. We will also have council liaison appointments ratified at that meeting. I know the mayor is actively working with the council to start to fill those assignments, which are critical. and certainly fill your plates. And then with Councilmember Barajas's resignation formally being tendered, we will bring forward to the council a discussion on the District 3 vacancy filling process and get direction how you would like to proceed, whether it be a special election or an appointment process. And then also want to mention that the apprenticeship and workforce development programs item, which has been ongoing, we will likely have a presentation on that, outlining some options for the council to advance the direction that was given a year ago around apprenticeships as well as workforce development. So pretty full plate on the 15th. As you will note, we'll be closed through December 24th through the 3rd of January. The first council meeting of 2021 would fall on December 5th, which would mean we'd likely have to release an agenda packet before the break. So as part of our discussion for the calendar for 2021, we'll get feedback from the council on whether you want to keep that date of January 5 or potentially consider adjusting it. So that concludes my remarks, Mayor. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Before I go further, I got a message that the video feed may have died. Can we have our IT staff look into that, please?
Certainly.
I will look into that.
Thank you. All right, that takes us then to item F, our consent calendar. And we have items F2 through F8. Is there a member of the council who wishes to pull or discuss a particular item from the consent calendar, items F2 through F8? Madam Clerk, are there any public comments submitted or hands raised regarding the consent calendar?
No, I have none.
Thank you. Hearing no requests and no public comments, is there a motion by a member of the council regarding the consent calendar, items F2 through F8?
Stallard will move the consent calendar.
Stallard moves the calendar.
I'll second. Barajas.
Barajas, second. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Councilmember Barajas?
Aye.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Aye.
Mayor Landsberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Stallard?
Aye.
Thank you. Consent calendar items 2 through 8 carry on a 5-0 roll call vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I just got a message that the video is back on, so thank you, IT. That takes us then to item G, a public hearing. Item G9, landmark and specimen tree nominations. I do believe we have a guest tonight, so I'll start with Mr. Hyatt, who will introduce our guest.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to have our Associate Planner, Megan Meyer, who presented at our last meeting, walk you through this public hearing item. And I believe representatives from the Tree Foundation will also be providing a presentation for the council as well on this important topic, certainly being the City of Trees, designating and recognizing the trees in our community that are prominent and have been here long before any of us is important, and not to lose sight of amongst everything else we're doing. So I want to acknowledge, the folks with the Woodland Tree Foundation that have really continued to sort of keep in the forefront of our minds the importance of our urban forest here in our community and whatnot. And so this item is a public hearing to consider designation, nomination of landmark trees that they have indicated are important to this community for a variety of different reasons. So I'll have Mrs. Meyer walk you through the presentation, and then have a follow-up presentation as well from, I believe, Mr. Wilkinson.
Thank you, and good evening, council members. Megan Meyer, Associate Planner. So as Ken mentioned, the item before you tonight is a request from local historian and current president of Woodland Tree Foundation, David Wilkinson, and fellow foundation board member, Rolf Frankenbach, for the nomination of 5 trees for local landmark status and 5 trees for specimen status located on public land. In just a moment, I will turn it over to Mr. Wilkinson to provide a brief overview of the trees recommended for nomination. But first, I want to quickly go over the provisions and processes for the designation of a local landmark or specimen tree to keep in mind as you consider the nominations this evening. Upon the proposed nomination of the 10 trees, planning staff conferred with the city's parks superintendent and arborist, Wesley Schroeder, who evaluated the list of nominated trees and found them to be viable candidates for designation as landmark or specimen trees. And on September 16th of this year, the Historic Preservation Commission reviewed the request and voted 3-0 to approve the recommendation to council for the nominated trees upon the concurrent review and recommendation of the Parks and Recreation Commission. In addition to reviewing the 5 trees nominated for trees for landmark status, the Parks and Recreation Commission also reviews the body for the 5 trees nominated for specimen tree status. And on October 26th of this year, the Parks and Recreation Commission reviewed and nominated the trees and voted 4-0 for approval of the recommendation to council. So just to briefly give an overview of the process for nomination, the city's municipal code outlines the criteria and review requirements for both landmark and specimen tree status. As we present the 5 trees nominated for landmark tree status, the city council is asked to consider the historical importance of the trees and significance to the community. And when reviewing the 5 trees nominated for specimen tree status, the focus is on the tree's unique characteristics, such as the tree's size or the species. The city's tree ordinance requires a plan to be in place to prevent and protect landmark and specimen trees where proposed development could potentially have an impact on their viability. And it also lays out a replacement requirement for landmark and specimen trees that are found to be in good condition, but that are removed as part of a development project or otherwise. I will now turn over the presentation to David Wilkinson and Rolf Frankenbach, who will briefly go through the nominated trees.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Megan, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for that introduction and your work bringing these nominations to the council. And I appreciate the work of Christine and Megan at the commission level, helping organize the presentation. Pleasure to be before you. Mayor Landsberg, members of the council, good evening. Rolf and I will keep our remarks very brief. I imagine you've already looked through the slides and hopefully you've read some of the all or some of the material that were included in our nomination. So Rolf, are you with us?
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Rolf.
Okay.
So Rolf's a longtime member of the Tree Foundation Board. Rolf and I mapped Woodland's 205 largest valley oaks, which you'll find on the Tree Foundation's website. Rolf, I'll let you take this first one since you live right over the Beamer Park neighborhood. Go ahead.
Okay, this is a cork oak that's a very beautiful specimen, and it's in an open area in the parking lot of the Beamer School. So it's a particularly nice specimen, I think, that shows, how nice cork oaks are. And this tree is pretty good size. It's 47 inches, and let me check my statistics here. 47.5 inches of diameter at breast height, which is a standard way of measuring tree size, 4.5 feet above the ground. And it's about 47 feet tall, which is about the same height as it is, well, no, in feet. So it's a broad tree, not particularly tall, but it's a great specimen. I don't believe it was present in 1937. We have aerial photographs of woodland. I looked and it's not clear that tree existed yet. So it's probably younger than 83 years old, but it probably has a lot more life in it. And being in a school, it seems to me that it serves a particularly big educational opportunity for students. If we have a sign on it with a little bit of information about the species and its, adaptability to our climate. And so that's why we chose it as a landmark tree. I think it's in a good location to educate our community about our trees. And this is a very nice specimen of a cork oak.
Thank you, Rolf. This is a historic school site as well. The Woodland Joint Unified School District's been very enthusiastic about nominating trees on campuses. You may recall that in the past, Valley Oak trees at both Douglas and Lee Middle Schools were designated landmarks. So here we have Dingle School, where our two daughters attended. It was formerly known as the Oak Street School in the 1800s. Then it became Woodland Grammar. Then it was named after longtime educator Charles Dingle. So it's been a history. I believe the school district or the school might be a local landmark. But there's two Valley Oaks now, large ones left on campus, this being one of them. It's well maintained by the district. And they lost one of similar size next to it a couple years ago, but we helped the school plant a lot more shade trees on the campus, and they actually planted a new Valley Oak pretty close to this mature Valley Oak, but it's probably a couple hundred years old. Hopefully has a lot more life left in it. And again, this will be a very good educational resource for students and teachers. We would anticipate the school district paying for the interpretive signs that are also sitting underneath the landmark trees at Lee and Douglas Middle School. Okay, next slide. Rolf, go ahead. It's magnificent London plane tree on Third Street.
Yeah, this is a London plane tree. And it's our largest London plane in Woodland. It's, I think it's 58 inches in diameter at breast height and 107 feet tall. It's a very dominant, it just totally dominates that block. And, looking at that aerial photograph from 1937, it might have been present then. It's hard to tell because there was a lot of trees in that block. But there were trees there, and it's possible that this tree was already there. I think David has a better background on when the London planes were typically planted. I think they were planted in the decade before 1930, in the 20s. So it's a very healthy specimen. Some of our London planes have anthracnose. This one doesn't show any signs of that. And the homeowner there is very much in favor. He wrote a letter in favor of nominating it as a landmark. So there's no controversy, I don't think, at least on his part. But it's a very common species in woodland. It does very well in our soils and climate with very little water, and it's very long lived. So it's certainly having a sign on this tree would help educate and further our community on another, successful species that does well here. And, this is probably our nicest specimen. So maybe it should be a specimen tree. I don't know, but it should be recognized, I think, one way or another.
Yeah, I believe the London plane is one of the most popular trees worldwide. And I think it may be the most common public tree in Woodland. It's a cross between an Asian sycamore and an Eastern United States sycamore. And we also have a native sycamore that you see growing along the Sacramento River and over at Pioneer Park that does very well here. It became very popular in the 20s and 30s. You see so many of them at Beamer Park. It really kind of replaced the American elm as the premier street tree in Woodland, since the American elm were phased out in the 1930s due to the Dutch elm disease scare. Now I think we have less than 100 American elm in Woodland. Okay, the next one is a magnificent tree, Valley oak tree on Casa Linda Drive. I'm sure all of you are very familiar with this tree. In fact, I saw City Manager Ken Hyatt standing next to Woodland's flag emblazoned with a Valley oak that supposedly was inspired by this very tree, which is pretty cool. It's remarkable for many reasons, in our opinion. It being the second largest oak in Woodland, just a little bit smaller than the next one that we'll look at that we nominated at the Gibson House Museum. The trunk diameter is close to 7 feet. And this tree, we estimate, could be possibly 400 years old. And I think because of its magnificence, starting with shading of farm structures before the subdivision went in the 1950s, it's one of the very few oaks where the developer of the subdivision, maybe with a little prodding by the city, did not remove it to put in the subdivision, which is kind of a rare thing in Woodland. So it's a survivor, very prominent. And we are very happy to see, very pleased to nominate this tree, which is actually owned and maintained by the city of Woodland. So we would envision some kind of marker there for the general public, but quite a specimen. Okay, next tree, please. And another truly amazing tree at the Gibson House Museum. I call these in my forthcoming book called Gertrude's Oaks. This one and the Casa Linda oak, I call them Woodland's king oaks. They truly are monarchs. It's a couple inches larger in diameter than the Casa Linda oak. So the Gibsons wisely built their house near it, and to shade the house in the afternoon, they used to have picnics under it, invite several hundred people sat under the tree. So it's served a very useful purpose. There are other smaller oaks at the Gibson House grounds that probably are progeny from this particular tree. One of them, unfortunately, they just had to remove. Tree was over a century old, but as some trees do, they develop decay and other problems, and they become unsafe. But the county does maintain and prune this tree regularly, so hopefully it'll live another century as well. The Gibsons called it the lone oak, Lone, because when they settled this land in the 1860s, yet there weren't apparently a lot of oaks around it at the time, unlike in the core area of Woodland, which was literally an oak grove. So this is known as lone oak. So we're very pleased to nominate this tree that I'm sure the county will want to market, put an interpretive sign to educate visitors about our natural history. And we have a letter of support from County Supervisor Gary Sandy. Next slide, please. I believe, so those are the nominations for landmarks. Rolf and I, as we've been working on the tree ordinance, we noticed that there's a provision for nominating specimen trees, which Megan just kind of outlined. I don't think any have ever been nominated in this category ever, which is kind of too bad. So we thought, well, let's start, because as we identify these trees and mark them, the public who visits our public parks can learn a lot more about our natural history and trees that do very well in Woodland. So we decided to nominate, I think, 5 or 6 trees that are located in Ferns Park and Freeman Park, starting with a couple of trees, including this coastal live oak and another tree that we'll be looking at in a minute. We know these were planted in 1977 by former public parks, longtime public parks employees, former Superintendent George Algren and former park Supervisor Dennis Parrish, 2 gentlemen that I know personally and who really had a progressive vision back in the 70s. So this Ferns Park nature area, which is really kind of a hidden gem, holds lots of native trees that are now close to 40 years old. And they have this. Rolf, are there any remarks about the coastal live oak that we're nominating for specimen status?
Yeah, this is a really pretty big specimen, I think, for being only 43 years old. So I don't know that coastal live oaks were native this year. I think they were a little bit more along the coast, but they do quite well in Woodland. We have probably a dozen in downtown, in the old part of town, that are, very nice trees. So they certainly are, capable of doing well here, even though I think they're used to more, foggy, rainier conditions than we have here.
Yes, they're native to California, and you see them prominently in the coastal range between, Northern California all the way down into Baja, California. And they're an evergreen tree, so they stay green year round. And we thought this was a good way to call more attention to the Ferns Park nature area. We met with Park Superintendent Wes Schroeder and some of the park's supervising staff, and we're envisioning a remarking of the trees in Ferns Park to kind of rejuvenate that area, and then eventually plant more native shrubs in and around the trees, which have died off over the last 40 years. One reason being just too much shade now for some of the areas, but it's an important area within our public parks that can really serve a really good educational mission. Okay, next one. This magnificent tree, as you come in off of Southwood Avenue into the Ferns Park, you'll see these 2 stunning spreading walnut trees. And this was a former walnut orchard These are believed to be the what's commonly called the English or Persian walnut. It's native to Europe and Asia. And it's the commercial variety that's in walnut orchards is typically grafted onto a different stock, like the Paradox walnut stock. But they grow quite large. They're fragrant leaves and just a delightful shade tree. So we're very, very pleased to nominate this one as a specimen tree in Ferns Park. Next, please. And this is another one we nominated in Ferns Park back in the nature area, Rolf. This is a type of pine tree, the gray pine, or more commonly called the foothill pine, that's endemic to the Northern California area, and you won't find this tree anywhere else in the world. Rolf, I'm sure you've hiked around a lot of these foothill pines in your time.
Yeah, they're actually, there's some in Yolo County, east of here, up Cape Valley. You'll actually start seeing them. Even at, before you get up into the higher country, they go that low, but so they are definitely native to Yolo County, but a little bit more east of Woodland.
Okay, next. Now the final two nominations are in Freeman Park, which has a long history. It was an area with quite a few oaks back in the day of Gertrude and Frank Freeman, who lived right behind it on Court Street. Then it became Woodland's first public school, elementary school, in the 1870s. And then when our newer schools were built in the teens, including Dingle School and the one over on North Walnut Street, the primary school, the building was torn down. And then in 1925, the city named the second public park honoring Frank Freeman, the town founder. So it's been a city park since 1925. And this is a Canary Island pine, which is quite a remarkable pine tree. There's a lot of them on the UC Davis campus and several around town. They do very well here, even though they're native to the Mediterranean region off the coast of North Africa, Canary Islands. There's one in my neighborhood that's, I believe, over 100 feet tall. That's probably a century old. So they will live well over 100 years. They're very drought tolerant. All these trees don't really require any water, and it's an evergreen species. So we look forward to this one being marked for educational purposes at Freeman Park. And this is another one right in the middle of Freeman Park. It's kind of a rather rare species for Woodland. We have quite a few deodar cedar, but this is the blue atlas cedar, which is native actually to mountains in northern Africa. But some trees like this are very adaptable. They'll grow at high altitudes and they'll grow at low altitudes. And it's got the beautiful bluish color from a wax pigment on its leaves that makes it very adaptable to warmer climates. This might have been planted in the 20s in Freeman Park when there was a big outcry when some large trees were removed from there. Sound familiar? And a lot of new trees were ordered and planted in Freeman Park in around 1929. So this one's been here a while, and it's a very interesting tree. So I believe that covers our nominations. I hope you agree with us that these trees are worthy of either landmark or specimen status. And I think it's a good way to celebrate our tree culture and the diversity of specimens we have here. That, in particular, these are very drought tolerant and should be pretty adaptable to our warming climate. I think with that, we can stop, and if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Dave and Rolf. I just want to start out by saying that the city of Woodland owes you such a huge debt of gratitude to you, Rolf and Dave, as well as the Tree Foundation, for being such critical stewards of our trees in our city. We're proud of you both, as well as your group. Every time you speak, I learn something. I learned so much from you, bringing the heritage of these trees and the history of these trees. And I personally want to thank you for this presentation. Is there a member of the council that has a question or comment for either staff, Dave, or Rolf?
Fernandez here. I've got a comment or multiple comments.
Mr. Fernandez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to echo some of those sentiments, Dave and Rolf. Dave, it's been a pleasure and one of my fondest, most treasured, reoccurring just memories working with you for the last 8 years or so on the Parks and Recs Commission and on the City Council. Your organization has done so much for Woodland, more so than many of us. And I'm always happy to support initiatives that you and your organization have brought forward. You've surrounded yourself with some very incredible, dedicated environmental stewards, which has driven the success. And you've mustered support from some council colleagues of mine, like Mr. Tom Stallard, and you've planted thousands of trees in recent years with the support of the city. And I think every person, every Woodlander, anyone living in the city with the motto "City of Trees," has a responsibility and obligation to plant a tree in their lifetime. But I'm so much more ready and willing to give, I think, a tree a designation than any person. So I'm happy to support this and the great work that you've done. Dave, you're a great asset. Your organization is a wonderful asset to this community. And I encourage you to continue the dedicated, persistent work that you have done and your organization's done for years now, so decades. So thank you.
Thank you, Enrique. I really appreciate those kind words from you and the mayor. And I want to thank you, Enrique, for your 4 years of dedicated service on the City Council and the Parks Commission. I look forward to seeing you out planting trees now that you have a bit more time.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments or questions from council members?
Mayor?
Councilmember,
I think I heard Councilmember Barajas first.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Mayor Landsberg. Thank you both for presenting this report and actual recommendation before the City Council regarding adopting a resolution to have 5 trees as a local landmark trees here in Woodland. We are the city of trees. I feel that we definitely have to do what we can right now to showcase and really do some outreach into our community to preserve and to teach our community that these historic landmarks have been here for hundreds of years, and we have to do whatever it takes to preserve these trees and also educate people that these trees are part of our community. It's part of our woodland pride. And I look forward to not only finding five landmarks, but in a couple of years, maybe a couple of more. And without your leadership, we wouldn't be here today talking about this and voting on this recommendation. So I'm in full support, and I'd like to thank your leadership on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Barajas. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. David Wolf and the Woodland Tree Foundation very much appreciate this presentation and in history lesson. I know that our community is very grateful for all the trees we're able to enjoy throughout town. And I know 2021 will allow us at some point to get back out there and plant some trees. It is a very rewarding and fun event to get out there with the community. So I very much appreciate this item that we have here today, and very supportive of the work you do. And again, I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues that we're grateful to you, and we're very much indebted to all that you do on behalf of the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Council Rodriguez.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Stallard?
I'm going to pile on with everybody else to just say how fortunate we are to have people who care so much. And it's really inspiring to see the friendship that Rolf, you and David have. I know you're just a pair of buddies and you just roam this town, and you're on the lookout for great opportunities for noticing trees that need to be recognized. I also think, and I think Councilman Barajas was touching on this, that this act of recognizing special trees, all-stars, if you will, exalts all trees in the community, which is good for all of us. Our citizens should know that providing a greater shade canopy through trees is one of the 3 key strategies of our climate action plan for the city of Woodland. It's fundamental and it's important. So by bringing special recognition to the best of our trees, we bring recognition to all trees and their importance. And I just want to thank you both, your colleagues who labor at the board level for your foundation, and also for all the wonderful tree events you've hosted. They are exceptional and great community builders as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Tom Stellard. But we can't let the night go by. And Dave and Rolf, I think you would agree that we have an in-house arborist, tree arborist, Wesley Schroeder, who's on this call, who is the person who's, I think, in charge of making sure that these landmarks, especially those that are owned by the city, are well maintained and well kept. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I definitely agree with that. We did get behind a little bit there for a while, but we've since caught pretty much all the way up, and we're kind of getting ahead this year. So we're finally getting our urban forest back to where it needs to be, and hope to be able to keep it that way.
Great. Thank you, Wesley. So let me open up the public hearing at this point. So the public hearing is now open. Madam Clerk, are there any hands raised regarding this item? You're muted, Madam Clerk.
I don't see any hand raised, no.
Are there any comments that need to be read into the record?
I do have an email, and I'll begin. I strongly endorse the adoption of the resolution designating landmark and specimen trees. Thank you, Mark Ullman.
Great. Any others?
No, that's it.
Okay. Hearing no other public comments or questions, we're going to close the public comment period on this particular topic. And if there are no last words from council members, we'll entertain a motion on this particular item.
Move to approve.
Fernandez moves.
It was Mark garbled. One more time.
Fernandez moves. Sorry.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded by Barajas. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Barajas,
Aye.
Councilmember Fernandez,
Aye.
Mayor Landsberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Stallard.
Aye.
Thank you. Public hearing item number 9 carries on a 5-0 roll call vote.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you to staff, to Rolf, to Dave, and the Tree Foundation again for the wonderful work that you do, and keep going. Thank you so much. Our pleasure to move this item into the record. All right. There are no other public hearings on the calendar. That takes us to item H, adjournment. I don't have anything specific tonight in adjournment. Does any council member have someone they would like to recognize at adjournment?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to suggest a memorial adjournment in honor of the late Jim Scott, a great community volunteer. His wife Jackie was recognized at one of our community award ceremonies of recent years, and when I presented the award to her, I said it really should go to Jim and Jackie because they've been a great team through the years doing wonderful things for our community. So I respectfully request that we adjourn in memory of Jim Scott.
Let's do so in the memory of Jim Scott. Let's adjourn our meeting. Everyone have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good
Night,
night.
everyone.
Good night.